So the results are all in for the round 12 games for Saturday of Super Rugby. All pretty good games, I think. They all had their own issues, but I think for the most part, none of these were like 55-10 scorelines where you knew the game was over at a certain point. Sharks Highlanders one was perhaps one that was blown out, at least to a degree. Yeah, all pretty good games, all pretty competitive, and some interesting results for the log going forward. I'll start with the Hurricanes Lions. It was, at least on paper, the game of the round. I think in practice it probably wasn't a classic game, but there were still some pretty good moments. It was affected by the wind. It was really windy. It wasn't the only game this week where the wind was just a factor, but it meant things like lineouts and kicks or perhaps just not being executed as they might if it was kind of more stable conditions. The Hurricanes were on top early. They had a lot of early ball. Lions were able to get some good turnovers to kind of contain them, but that one man, Lamb, they really struggled to contain. So in a scoreline of 28-19, Lamb's got 3 tries, Adi Savia 1. For the Lions, Groom, Schoolman and Mahuza. Lamb is just such a difference maker at the moment. For difference makers, the Lions lost Marks really early, which is very disappointing. I'm not sure what the extent of his injury is, but he's probably their best player. So to lose him within the first kind of quarter of the game is really disappointing. Don't know if that would have been the difference, but it certainly helps to have probably the best hooker in the world playing, seeing as he's such a turnover machine as well. Mistakes were probably the story of the first half for both teams, and both teams kind of capitalizing on each other's mistakes. Lions line-up mistakes, restart mistakes, giving away penalties when being held and then running on with the ball. For the Canes, mistakes when clearing. So yeah, it was just a bit scrappy. Definitely not two teams playing with the ability we know they can, but still, when you speak of Ben Lamb, man, it was still some pretty sweet moments. So the Canes build-up play always looked a touch more dangerous than the Lions. Like if you look at Ben Lamb for the Canes versus Afiwa Dianti for the Lions, both these guys are really explosive wingers who've had multiple try games this season, and Lamb looked a threat a lot more than Dianti. He just didn't have the ball as much, Dianti, and wasn't able to get kind of into full stride, wasn't able to bump off the same kind of tackles. So yeah, it was kind of an indication of the way the game was going at points. Although Schoolman, man, that guy can't keep out of the tries. And it's good to see him get a start, and yeah, he seemed to take his opportunity pretty well. So for a guy who's not that big, he certainly puts in a big effort. Second half, I thought the Lions probably came into it a bit more, similar to their thing against the Reds, how they had kind of a surge in the second half. That's what they did again in this game. So their scrum was dominant. They were able to get penalties, but not able to kind of capitalize as much as they would have liked. Yeah, it was just last 25 was probably a bit too late to stage a comeback, and not quite able to get it done. For the Canes, they're pretty good for large periods of the game. Lamb scores tries that other players don't score. Like that first one, he should have just been bundled into touch, but maybe the tackling was soft. I think the Lions will probably have a look at that and see some areas to improve. But yeah, some players have just got it. Sometimes it doesn't last for the long term. Some guys do it for a season. Some guys can do it for multiple seasons. Like Julian Savia used to be able to do it probably more than he does now. Just that ability to repel attackers, and Lamb has just got it at the moment. And yeah, he was kind of kept quiet by the Sunwolves, but he ran riot against the Lions. Yeah, I still think they probably improved over last week against the Sunwolves, but still scarily not operating as slick as they could be. I saw news the other day also that Dane Coles is probably not going to be back for Super Rugby, so that's pretty disappointing for them, but Ricky Riccatelli is doing a good job. For the Lions, yeah, they left it too little too late. Marks is a big loss, of course, but with other teams in South Africa picking up wins, I mean, it's a pretty good week for the South African Conference, really, with the Jaguares, the Sharks, the Stormers, all getting wins. Only the Bulls going down, they had to go down to another South African team. So apart from the Lions, who are at the top, the rest of that South African Conference is starting to kind of bridge that gap. So yeah, the Jaguares is definitely not that far behind. And like I said, Sharks and Stormers also putting on some points. So for the Lions, I think it's just putting in 80 minutes. Like, it's no good giving up a big lead and then trying to chase it down. They're the Lions, so they should be coming out strong and putting points on the other teams. I mean, going away to the Hurricanes was always going to be hard, but they could do it, just not for 80. So yeah, the Canes have got the Blues away next week. You'd have to back the Canes in that one, despite the Blues getting a win this week. And the Lions go down to Dunedin to play the Highlanders, who will be travelling back from South Africa. So, yeah, a couple of interesting matchups to come. Next game, Tars and Blues. So this one was all about the Aussie-Kiwi streak, and it goes on. The Blues managed to win this one, 24 points to 21. Tries to Rico Ioane and Samoa Manu for the Blues. Fitzpatrick, Kipu and Hooper for the Waratahs, so they scored more tries. Not able to get the win. It was at Brookvale, which was a first. The crowd looked alright, but it's hard to say because the first time you take a game to a new ground, the crowd is usually good. So I doubt they would get those numbers every week if that's what they were going to be playing. But it was a vocal crowd, and that was really good to see. The stadium looked a lot more full, but that's because it's about half the capacity of Allianz. So, yeah, but still, it looks better on TV for sure. Tars, man, they put on some early pressure. Missed 3 points. Blues, as soon as they get down to the Tars 22, score a try. And that was largely the story of this game. The Tars are just always knocking on the door. Blues hold them out. Good D, and Blues get down the other end and just score some points. So it's more like a soccer game in some ways, where one team is just having shot after shot and can't get the ball on the net, and then the other team just hoops it down and just gets a goal. So yeah, just things like Falau's offload to Gordon didn't stick. They were getting pushed into touch. They were knocking the ball on like crazy. Silly decisions at some points. Yeah, but I mean, like I said, the credit to the Blues, their defense was good. Traditionally, in their own kind of 10-meter area, the Blues defense has just been really bad for many a season. And as soon as teams kind of got within that red zone, the Blues have just not been able to hold teams out. But yeah, it's probably a combination of the Blues defense, but also the Waratahs a bit of lacking some cutting edge and some execution. Just not able to get over the line. Like when Hooper finally did it, it looked good. It looked easy, but there wasn't enough of that kind of thing. So yeah, I wrote down at one point at 60 minutes, the territory was 63-37 to the Tars. That's how much they were playing in the Blues half. But the turnovers conceded at that point was 15-8, so the Tars turning over twice as much ball. They didn't have the possession stats like the territory, so they were forcing the Blues to play in their own half, but just coughing up the ball too much. Blues scrum, surprisingly, was a bit kind of stronger after getting really bullied around by the Jaguares last week, so that doesn't really speak volumes for the Waratahs pack, to be fair. When the Tars did finally get a try through Hooper, they really got some momentum. They're mauling well, and it looked like they were going to do it. It looked like they were going to finally break this duck. They had the momentum, they had the crowd behind them. The Blues were hanging on. And then Beale does this cross kick to Falau after building, I can't remember how many phases was it? It was 19 something phases, just attacking the Blues line. 19 phases, yeah. Just tried a cross kick. Maybe he thought he had penalty advantage. Also, the commentator said maybe his forward pack was just too tired. But with like a couple minutes left and you need to try, keep the ball. It was madness. I didn't know what they were doing. If I was a Tars fan, I would have been ripping my hair out. Like you remember seeing the Hurricanes play the Sharks where they needed a try. Back away from their own kind of 22, and they built tons of phases, and they eventually got it done. The Hurricanes wouldn't have done that. It was, not really. Like I said, maybe they thought they had penalty advantage. Whatever it was, they kind of stuffed it up. The Blues then tried to kind of give it back to them. Like it's like neither team wanted to win it. The Blues got a penalty with like 30 seconds left on the clock, kick it out and go for a line out, can't secure their own ball, give the Tars one more chance. And then the Tars are like, no, we don't want to win it. You have it. So they knocked it on through Paddy Ryan. They probably should have won with all the ball and all the chances, but if you don't take your chances, you don't deserve to win. It's pretty much as simple as that. And I really don't get it with the Aussie Conference because the Tars beat the Stormers, and the Stormers beat the Blues. So there's no reason the Tars can't beat the Blues. Like teams like the Rebels smashed the Sharks. The Sharks smashed the Blues. So the Aussie teams have got it in them. Like they beat the South African teams fairly regularly. Don't get it. I mean, as much as I like New Zealand rugby being good, the Aussie teams need to start winning some New Zealand games. Anyway, Tars, had enough chances to win. Territorially dominant, poor execution, penalties at really bad times, scrum under pressure. If they'd performed better, they would have won it. For the Blues, a win on the road is going to lift them for sure. They probably won't be happy when they look at all the numbers, but they'll certainly be happy with the defence. If they're going to build anything, it's probably a good place to start is to get that defence solid because, like I said, it's been poor in some areas at times. Like it's been, for a while, it's been the Blues doing the Tars basically. The Blues would attack and knock on. The other team would go straight down the other end and score points against the Blues. So it was, I guess, as a Blues fan, kind of pleasant to see it go the other way for a change, where the Blues were under the pump, managed to hold them out, and then go and score some points. So, yeah, it'll be interesting for them. Blues are going to have to pick it up next week when they play the Canes. That's for sure. Next game was the Stormers against the Bulls. Really windy in Cape Town. So it was a bit of a quick start if you want to look at it that way from the Stormers. They had a pretty quick 12-point lead in this one. Tries to Willemser and Lowe really early on. Later on, tries to Maria and Samuels. Bulls tries to Ludiaka and Jenkins. 29-17. Comfortable for the Stormers in the end. Stormer scrum was all over the Bulls early. And that was a lot of what was allowing the Stormers to really go forward. The Bulls were able to kind of come into it after that initial kind of 10-15 minute period and really start to put some pressure back on the Stormers. Stormers even got a yellow card at one point, but the Bulls not really able to capitalize. Only 3 points during that period where they had a fair bit of momentum. The lead did change kind of quickly at one point. The Bulls did actually go out in front. When Jenkins got his try, it was 17 points to 12. But then Maria's try with some brilliance from Dale Lendy just handed it straight back to the Stormers. So the Bulls, for the most part, were chasing this game. They did look fired up to try and chase it down, but not really able to get it done. It was a pretty even game. Some kind of key moments went the Stormers' way. I'm thinking of things like the scrum, the line out, some turnovers, the maul defence, that kind of thing. Stormers just looked to have the upper hand in a few kind of key battle areas. It got pretty heated towards the end, to be fair. I know it's a big rivalry. They look like they had a pretty good crowd for this one. Like for some of the games at Newlands this season, you've seen like a pretty empty looking ground. But this one, like for most of the games this week, I think the grounds all looked pretty well attended, which is also what we like to see. The game had a massive 27 penalties, which was not ideal. Glenn Jackson's been under a bit of scrutiny for his refereeing recently, although the commentators kept praising him. He seemed grumpy this week, especially with the TMO, which I guess is not bad because sometimes the conversations between the TMO and the refs can get a bit frustrating. But despite that, it was still a pretty engaging game. It was never really kind of out of reach until, the last kind of 15, 20 minutes. For the most part, it was kind of a ding-dong back and forth battle, some big tackles, some good skills, and yeah, just a kind of good derby match. But like I said, the penalties maybe made it a bit less easy on the eye than it could have been. For the Stormers, man, this is just another win at home. Can you imagine how good the season would be if they were just able to pick up 1 or 2 away wins? That'd be so much further up the table. Yeah, good scrum, some nice plays. They'll end to look good. Still not the finished package, you'd have to say. But yeah, if they can just manage to kind of get things together on the road, there might still be hope for them yet. The coach looked really pumped up in the coach's box when they were doing well, so that's good to see. It's good to see he's passionate for his team. He wears his kind of heart on his sleeve in that coach's box. For the Bulls, yeah, we've been talking them up a fair bit because they've been developing so well. And there were some periods with some plays in this game where they looked pretty slick. It was really nice to see Ludiaga kind of in full flight for his try. But yeah, they're still not the finished package. That loss against the Highlanders, while pretty harsh last week, it still kind of shows that there's areas for them to improve. And again, in this week, just not able to kind of get the job done. Really good in patches and nice stats overall. Like I think if kind of like the Waratahs, they'll look back at some of the possession and run meters and things like that and be asking themselves why they couldn't do a bit more. But yeah, always looking to next year for them this season anyway, because really, really good things we've seen so far. Stormers have got the Chiefs at home next week, so that's kind of become a bit of a rivalry with their recent kind of history, and so that'll be an interesting watch. The Bulls have got the Sharks at home, which will be another team looking to get revenge over the Bulls, because the Bulls did the job over the Stormers the other way around, and also the Bulls went to Durban and got a victory not that long ago, so the Sharks will be looking for revenge in that one. The last game, Sharks Highlanders. So Sharks take it down 38-12 in a pretty massive win in the end. Tries to Van der Merwe, Mapimpi, Dan de Preer, Nkosi and Rob de Preer. 2 for the Highlanders and Hunt and Walden. Man, what a start to this game. How many seconds was it? 36. 36 seconds until the Sharks got on the board. Ruan Botha just took the ball right out of Sopoanga's hands, kind of above him. And Van der Merwe is really quick for a hooker. I've always known that, but he showed a bit of toe to get to the line for that first try. So yeah, what a start. And the Sharks had 2 really early tries. Could have been 3 really, with Esterhuizen kind of blowing one. Took the contact with Naholo, and he probably could have not looked to barge him off and just maybe half bump him and just get the ball over the line. But still, they got to try it long after anyway. Highlanders were really struggling with the high balls, which is not something they usually do. They're usually pretty good. They kick the ball a lot. They're usually good at chasing their own high balls and usually good at defending them. So it was pretty surprising. It did settle down after kind of that first early onslaught from the Sharks. The Highlanders kind of tried to work their way back into the game. The Sharks started knocking the ball on a fair bit, which was disappointing because they still had a bit of momentum. But yeah, the Highlanders, they had the ball but weren't able to really go anywhere with it. It was really, really efficient defending from the Sharks, and they were able to make the Highlanders kind of attack look not hapless, but at least contained anyway. The scrum for the Sharks was on top before half-time for sure. So the Highlanders under a bit of pressure after last week's performance in that area as well. So yeah, it's an area where they're perhaps lacking a little bit, but some young guys in Lomax as well. So experience is always going to help. I mean, you look at the Sharks scrum at the start of the season with Dutoy really struggling in his new position, but he's improved as the season's gone on for sure. Yeah, the Sharks almost had another quick try in the second half, but not to be. Although I'm going to say for this game, it probably had the best skill tries of all the games this week. Like, there were just some magic tries. Mapimpi's ball to Dupree, where he just kind of tapped it back, was magic. Nkosi's try from Bosch was really it was Bosch to Dupree, yeah, just magic. It was really, really high skill. The Sharks were pretty regularly threatening to open up the Highlanders, which is like, the Highlanders are kind of famed for their tackling and their defence, but they were getting not cut up, but at least on the back foot a fair bit by the Sharks team. So it really makes you wonder where this Sharks team has been all season. I mean, they showed it against the Blues, but they've had just some really poor performances this season as well. So if they can play like this every week, they'll be a playoff team, and they'll threaten a lot of the teams, like a lot of the big boys as well. Sharks were able to keep the Highlanders' big guns quiet as well. So Ben Smith had one big run at the end, which set up a try, but for the most part, that Highlanders midfield, which has looked pretty threatening all season, was kept pretty quiet. Aaron Smith wasn't able to boss the game around like he usually does. If you're a Highlanders fan, I think you probably just put this one down to having an off week, maybe a bit tired. Better team got the victory this week. So yeah, Highlanders can head home, back to their fortress at Forsyth Bar, and just kind of write this one off, because it wasn't a good one. There's definitely a lot of work-ons. For the Sharks, it's a massive bonus point win. Very important for them going forward, because their season was kind of on the line at this point. Really crisp, and like I said, where have they been all year? And they seem to love playing New Zealand teams. Like, they smashed the Blues. They've really comfortably beaten the Highlanders. They pushed the Hurricanes away through to like the 80-plus minutes. So if they can get a playoff spot, man, who knows? Who knows? They seem to have a knack for it at the moment. For the Highlanders, no get out of jail card this time. It was just too much dominance from the Sharks. It does kind of show with that Chiefs result as well, that there does seem to be a bit of a gap between the Crusaders and the Hurricanes, and then the next two New Zealand teams, in the Chiefs and the Highlanders. There just seems to be just that, not quite that same level at the moment. And Blues distant fifth in that conference. But yeah, still, Highlanders are a good team, and they'll come back from this, no doubt. The Sharks play the Bulls in Loftus next week, like I said, and the Highlanders have got the Lions. So still be some interesting matchups for sure. What did you guys think of the games? Did you think the Lions probably could have performed better? Did Malcolm Marx's absence cost them? Or is it just maybe it could have been a bit closer? For the Blues, do you think they really deserve to hold that record? For the New Zealand teams, do you think the Waratahs probably should have won that one? That was my impression anyway. Storm was Bulls. Like I said, just a good South African derby. So what do you guys think of Jackson? Man, do I dare ask that question? Because I'm not usually one to just concentrate on the refs' performances. And man, can the Sharks make the playoffs? If they keep these performances up, I would say yes, but they're a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team, so you never know. All right, that's it from me, and I will talk to you guys for some power rankings probably tomorrow. See you later.